Hi, welcome! Welcome to Discussing Tabletop. It's episode 54 on November 11th, 2017. I hope everybody's having a great day this Saturday. I, for one, am having an alright day. I hope, but we're diving into talking the table news of the week, of course. Joining me, as usual, is Joe and Wyrm to continue discussion on all things RPG, CCG, board games, card games, and occasionally a party game too.
Anything and everything that can be played on a table.
Exactly. We've got an expansive amount of tabletop top. So
you can free.
Yeah. So of course today we're going to be diving into talking about the Pathfinder and, to a degree, Starfinder pawn boxes a little bit, because I want to talk about pawn boxes versus boxes. Pretty much is the discussion I want to have a little bit of. Then we want to talk about that the Conan by Morpheus. They've gotten a conversion guide out, but it's a free conversion guide, which is kind of cool. So I did want to chat a little bit about how the goodwill that they're putting out with that one a little bit. I want to talk about Ankur Kingdom of the Gods, because it's a pretty awesome setting, but also kind of ridiculous of a setting, I have to say. I want to talk about Sea of Light, which is a light setup of a story system dealing with the galaxy and a civilization in a galaxy. So, and they're not going to do the full game yet, but that's the release they have. And then I do want to talk about the state of some CCGs beyond Magic, because though there hasn't been any major Magic news lately, that is the other CCG we tend to talk about around here, and there are others. So I want to discuss things of like what we think about what's going on with things like Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh, a little bit of Card Fight Vanguard, because there are a couple others, but those are three major other CCGs that are technically out there that we don't tend to discuss directly on this show. So I did in a little bit. And then, of course, we'll finish up with our Kickstarter Korner, where we each choose a Kickstarter that this week, or we could find on about this week. We want to let you guys know about. Then we, of course, go into talking about what week in gaming was, and we finish up with answering any questions that you have. Why don't we start off, of course, with talking about the Pathfinder pawn boxes. So we did see a pawn box for a specific adventure, Iron Fang Invasion, and we also saw the Alien Archive, which we talked previously, get a pawn box. Now, the pawn boxes, if you don't know about them, are basically an easy way to say it is they're poor man's miniature. They're little stands, which you then put little cardboard on, and now the cardboard figures have the artwork of on them, so it's great artwork. Pathfinder, Starfinder, they do some good artwork. It's not to bust that it doesn't put on the cardboard itself, and it is two-sided, so you can use it. You could have it flipped over either way, and you do get a lot of them, like the Alien Archive. Over 100 of these pawns, $45. You can't get miniatures for that much, but always that argument miniatures versus these pawns that I can know exists. Miniatures are like 3D plastic models, and these are still cardboard. What do you guys think about this kind of discussion? And what do you think about what they're doing?
So, I'm actually very opinionated on this topic.
That is a good topic.
Miniatures, the are always better if you can afford them. These things are a great second. They're and I like the fact that you can, for again just like 45 bucks get over 300 creatures. It's like, okay, I can act instead of, and especially since when you look at these figurines, they're it's kind of like, oh yeah, here, buy these random boxes. That you can't just buy the ones you want unless you go on like eBay or something. Mm-hmm. You have to buy these dumb boxes and get the ones you want and just kind of hope you get enough kobold fight you're having. You're just kind of like, wow.
I completely agree. Yeah.
So when it comes down to it, the fact that they're so much cheaper that they could just give them all to you, and give you enough of what you need is wonderful. And in the end, I actually find these almost better because of that, because you can just get what you want and not have this like random chance kind of thing that the other ones have.
Yeah. Well, that's completely right. That's definitely avoiding the random chance as it is now. That was one of those things is I liked when I collected the 3rd edition D&D miniatures game, because it was also a game. I thought that was fun. That was a good way of doing, if you were going to do randomized miniatures, that worked out well. It had its own kind of like game to it, so it felt like something akin to a CCG, but in miniatures form. And I accepted that when it was there, and I collected them. And granted, yes, maybe I don't need giant fiendish mantis every time. But when I need a giant fiendish mantis, or something of the similar, I could use it, and they weren't terrible miniatures.
Or a blue water elemental that looks like a Scooby-Doo villain.
That's also giving a middle finger. It does look like it's giving a middle finger.
It's giving you the middle finger, and it looks like a Scooby-Doo villain.
These are both correct about that little water elemental.
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah.
I was gonna say, but without digressing too much from this entire thing, I think it's the fact that miniatures does represent something. Now, granted, you can get unpainted miniatures, which are also cheaper. You can get metal miniatures, which are more expensive than plastic ones. So the miniatures market does vary.
I think the pawn things are cool. It's a cheaper way to do it. Mm-hmm. But you could make something similar at your house just by printing them out.
That's actually I think a plus for them, because, well, okay, to make really nice ones, you need a little bit more than that, because you can't just print them on standard paper because they'll just get destroyed really easily. But you can always print more. There actually is a market for these. I actually looked into it at where you can buy these, but I've also found it's actually apparently fairly easy just to make them yourself. So, but so that's kind of the thing. But to just pay, not a lot of, that's kind of the thing too. That's why they can't be that expensive, because you can make them yourself. It's basically just saving you time. They have this thing on an assembly line, basically, just printing off these 300 in one box, and it's just well, how long will it take you to print out the 300, cut them out, fold them up, put them on a base?
Yeah.
I mean,
well, I think there is one advantage that some of the Pathfinder ones have. The Adventure Path collections. Because the Adventure Path collections I have seen, it has a miniature for each adventure, of course, and there are some pictures which don't show up in the adventures. They'll be like, this is this NPC you're fighting, or this is this guy. We don't have pictures for them, but we do artwork for the pawns in the pawn box. So in that case, because it's specific to that adventure, granted, it does have that same replayability of, oh, this looks cool enough to use over here. That's always the same with any miniatures, that's the same. But if you are going to at least play through Iron Fang Adventure once, and you have an extra $25, and you plan on using a lot of boards, this might be good for you, because it also gives you images of a lot of characters that maybe you don't have, which I find has an advantage, because, again, the books can only have so many pictures in them, and probably Pathfinder got everything together, and now they're just here's what everything looks like. Yeah.
But when it comes to miniatures, I think miniatures would do a whole lot better if you could just buy packs that you want.
Yes.
Have you heard of the game Heroescape?
I have heard of Heroescape. I've never actually played Heroescape.
Yeah.
Greatest game ever. I have a box this big of stuff for it, and a lot of their miniatures can actually be used for other things, which is why that's why I have a whole collection of miniatures. But the way you purchase them, because you buy the units, you assemble your army. The way you purchase them is you purchase them in a box of a couple different things for $10. It's okay, it's a little, you get 6 miniatures in a box. and you can use these, you can buy multiple of them to make, if you want a lot more of the same unit type for your army, but it's like you knew what you were getting. You were buying this specific thing. And that's what I loved about it is, and then Wizards had to buy it and kill it. But it's the one thing I am mad at Wizards for. They killed HeroScape. Because they bought it, tried to integrate it with D&D by, making this whole D&D adventure set, and then that just tanked, and HeroScape was never seen or heard from again.
No, and that's the same thing, is that it was technically Wizards that did the random kind of collectible miniatures set, which it's sort of like a love and a hate that I do have for it. I actually have to say too, because it's also like, yes, if I wanted certain things, it was like buying packs of Magic cards. After a certain point in time, it's never worth it, and you should just buy them individually.
Yep.
The amount of packages you have to get a complete collection, as someone that likes complete collections, is insane. Just insane.
No, and that's the thing, is unless you have the money to buy 100 of these boxes, it's not worth buying one, in my opinion.
Yeah. And that's expensive. You know, that gets up there. Standardization can be good in that way. But, again, it is couldn't we have standardization for miniatures too? It might not be bad to have both options. And I think that would be good.
I think miniatures should be standardized. Actually, part of the reason I like pawns is because they are, and that's actually, if anything, if miniatures became standardized, these are still a cheaper option, but miniatures would become so much more tempting. Because it's I know what I'm doing, I can buy the ones I need when I need them.
I wouldn't mind, they would split up, let's give an example, Iron Fan Invasion. They could split up each of the 6 adventures into their own miniatures box, and you could just get them standard then. And granted, that might not be cheap, but if you wanted, some fully painted, really awesome miniatures for your thing, hey, look at that. Bam. I've got it set up and provided, and I could just throw it together there.
Yeah, well, and, that's the thing is, HeroScape proved that miniatures aren't actually that expensive, because it's 6 to 8 miniatures in one box for, $10.
Yeah.
And it's okay, so you're telling me that you could just have a cannon fodder pack which has kobolds and goblins, 4 of each, and you could just buy 2 of them for your, and now you have all the goblins and kobolds you'll ever need.
Mm-hmm.
And you have all the different miniatures, and it's just it'd just be $20, and it'd be cool, I'm done.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but the problem is it's a money game, so they rather make it random, so you keep buying them.
Yep. I get the money game. I just kind of think it's dumb because,
I think the only ones that they had individualized were the large creatures.
The really large ones, yeah. There's Bahamut and Tiamat, which you buy separately.
Well, I got look, if I can angle this correctly up towards my thing.
And there's no way I'm not going to buy it.
Up there, Colossal Red Dragon, up on my shelf. That thing is god awful expensive, but I was glad I got it. And I got the other dragon, a couple of the other dragons up there. But those were from the classic one. That was before the Bahamut and Tiamat they put out, because those were they changed the rules of 4th edition diced it, and I stopped playing the game then. I stopped collecting and playing it when they changed the rules completely.
The Bahamut and Tiamat ones were released, that I'm thinking of, were released for the Dragon Queen and Rise of Tiamat.
Oh, then they're really recent then, yeah.
Yeah.
But I think there was an Orcus. So that's right, there was an Orcus when they changed it to the 4th edition rules, because they had the entire storyline with Orcus.
Yeah.
Yeah. But no, the Colossal Red Dragon was just that. It was nothing special, they just did it because random reasons.
Mm-hmm.
But,
okay.
I was going to say, the big complaint I do have about, going back to the pawn boxes in the Iron Fang Invasion one is, you still need the bestiary pawn box and NPC Codex pawn box, they say. They say they nearly have everyone. They didn't put specific repeats that are in these 2.
That's a much more fair money game, because at least these other pawn boxes have all the stuff you'll need for if you want to run another campaign in the future.
Yeah.
Now, on the flip side, the only great thing is with the D&D miniatures, it's also a secondary game on its own.
Yeah, I think that was the good thing. That's the only.
So you're
reason,
getting two for one there.
That was the only reason I really got into the D&D miniatures game, was because it was still a fun game. Granted, it's a game that you need like even number of players, or things just don't work out.
Or you have two people picking on one person normally.
Yeah, yeah. It's definitely a game where you unfortunately need to have even number of players. There's flaws with the game. I'm not going to argue against that, but it was a fun game when I did it, and I would love to do it again. Maybe they have tabletop I think they do have like tabletop simulator.
I have it on Tabletop Simulator.
Yeah, maybe we could try it sometime for like 2 or 3 hours, because that takes forever, as I recall. It's a fun game, but again, you need an even number of players. But that was the appeal at the time for those. That made me feel like those miniatures were really cool and awesome and worth it. And yeah, I did like when I got like multiples of commons. So I could throw out like, oh, I got a band of a bunch of different orc warriors. Yeah. Or I need like 8 skeletons here. I ended up with 8 skeletons in my collecting, kind of thing. Because they were commons.
Right.
But it's a tough argument between the two of these things, because there's advantages and disadvantages to both of them. Granted, like, I think the big advantage of pawns over miniatures is, of course, price. But it doesn't, just because it's less money doesn't mean it's necessarily better anyway, Cost effective isn't better, it's just that it might be what you need. And it might be all that they have, too. Like, again, if you're playing through the Iron Fang Invasion, the pawn box is probably the way to go, because they don't have miniatures for it. So you don't really have choices in that case.
Yeah, but basically I think what it really comes down to is, do you want to spend crap tons of money? Because honestly, if they standardize miniatures, I think miniatures would win out only barely, because even though they'd still be more expensive, they'd just be nicer.
Yeah, it's always nicer to be able to have the miniature than it is a standee.
Mm-hmm. Why am I getting an advertisement? Where from? Found it. Eliminated it. Yay, noise on my end. I don't know if anybody heard that. But,
no.
No.
Yeah, but
yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Well, no, you go ahead then.
I was just gonna say, so yeah, like when it comes down to it, the miniature, right? But these are nice, if only because you can have a lot of what you want, for relatively cheap comparatively.
Yeah, and it's relatively cheap, and it's like what you need. It could be what you need, and. I say at least, like, it's at least something that Pathfinder Paizo is putting out, at least, even if their actual miniatures game, I think, has been lacking, because I think that D&D has been putting some stuff out for some of their stuff. I thought they were still doing some miniatures, but just not like an insane amount of them. It's hard to keep track of the miniatures game as much as it is, because I'm not good at miniatures games, like Warhammer and stuff, and keeping track of that.
Right.
And it's also like, well, that's a different story entirely. I was going to get into there, how like I don't track as much of the miniatures games on stuff like Here or Gathering the Roll, because it's like you get a lot of small pack releases all the time from a bunch of different companies, and it's kind of hard to be like, this is more awesome than the next, because it's really easy. That's the only thing, is like it's easy to come out with a lot of miniatures. But yeah, that's a digression of information that we don't need to get into any kind of discussion on right now. But so yeah, the pawn boxes, the Iron Fang Invasion one's out now, and the Alien Archive is out now. So if you are really interested in them, you could definitely get them. They're available for you. Is there anything else you guys want to say about it, or are we good to move on for now?
I'm good.
I'm good, yeah.
Okay. And quickly looking up sorted monsters. Yeah, I think D&D is still doing random miniatures in packs though, because they have 44 for their Tomb of Annihilation pack, and it's boosters.
Hmm.
And I don't think for $16 you're getting 44 miniatures.
No.
So that's a thing.
Probably like 5 to 10.
It's not enough. There's not enough randomization to make it me feel like it's worth it to buy a couple. It's like, what? Wizards just keeps doing the random miniatures, and it's just, without the game behind it, I don't think it's worth it at all, because it just isn't. But
I mean, I think the main reason, like, it's probably still a thing and they're still doing it is because it's been a thing forever. Because randomization was more interesting, I think, a while back, when you could just kind of like, oh, what am I gonna get? But nowadays, when, like, you can get basically these pawn boxes, they're much less, they're much less interesting. And when it comes down to it, I think they've kind of just held on to it because their original fan base is still around, being like, I've been doing this forever, I might as well continue.
Yeah.
Right.
I think the term is, in like iPhone games, it's considered, you're catering to the whales, the people who have all the money, who can just kind of spend money frivolously.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
that's not how you should run businesses.
And it definitely is. It's not the same anymore, because like in the old days, it would be like, rather than we have 44 Tomb of Annihilation miniatures you can randomly get a collection of, it used to be like, we have like 100 you can randomly get a selection of. And
yeah, just 100 from all the bestiaries.
Mm-hmm. And like maybe a bunch of different like unusual NPCs are included with them. Like, oh, you have this rogue fighter, or you have level 1, like both rogue and a fighter at the same time. And the thing is, they would also provide stats for the D&D games on these cards back in the day. So I could have one side, I'd have the miniatures game, the other side I'd be like, oh, this is what this character would have if I'm using him in actual D&D, and I could throw this like second level rogue, first level fighter that I have a miniatures for into my D&D games. But,
yeah, that's what really made it. And if you're doing a specific game like that, to me, for if it's just 44 to collect, that should just be a special, hey, we have a big package, you can buy for it, you buy all of them.
Yeah.
When you're talking like 100 or more, then yeah, the randomization makes a little more sense. It's like, okay, fine. But if you're coming out for a specific adventure, just make it one box.
Yeah. No, I mean, this is definitely one of those things that brings a lot of heated discussion to it, and we might revisit it again, but the entire idea of miniatures versus pawn is definitely an interesting one to discuss, and we can see how it evolves. We can see if, Wizards actually learns a lesson somewhere in here and, fixes things. I don't know if they will or not. Because I'm sure there's also probably an entire group of people that buy up a ton of those miniatures packs and then create sets of certain things and resell those.
Oh yeah, no, that's like, no, I've seen those. I've already like went and looked them up on eBay one time. They exist.
Yeah, and I'm sure they're earning a whole bunch of money in a secondary market and taking advantage of this circumstance that Wizards is setting up. Because they are. Which is a terrible thing. You're basically like...
No, it's horrible.
Yeah. So.
I mean, that money should be going directly to Wizards.
And it's probably less going to Wizards, It's like they're probably getting their, in quotations, money's worth, but a lot of extra of the profit is probably going to some sleazy guy somewhere that set it up to do this.
Yeah.
All right, but let's move on. I do want to talk about, first off, the conversion guide done by Mophidius. So Mophidius has just put out as of last year, a new Conan RPG using the 2D20 system. And the thing is, though, apparently they had a couple of members of their team who were part of the old Mongoose Publishing D20 system that came out in 2004. So, in order to sort of branch things, they've come out with a free conversion guide. And they've literally said this should allow you to convert not only your, characters, but any material you might have had from those old 2D20s, those source books, you could bring them into this current edition of it using this. And I think that's the way they're looking at that. Like, you can always get those character conversion guides, like, for example, Shadowrun. Shadowrun, whenever they come out with a new edition, they're like, here's a character conversion guide, here's how you can convert it from one edition to the next. And granted, these are between different publishers, of course, and I don't know if Mongoose is around anymore. They might not be. Hard to say. I would have to look them up. But
I will check.
Yeah, please, thank you. But the fact is that they're creating a conversion guide from a version of this RPG done by a different company, different system, very different system because it's going from 1D20 to 2D20, and it's free, and they're encouraging people to use those old source books. Means that they are, it feels like it's goodwill to me.
Yeah, it looks like Mongoose is still around.
Okay, but they probably either lost the rights to it or they gave them up at some point in time.
Yeah.
It looks according to the conversion guide where they're talking about it. They had 6 years of producing material from it, so including a second edition of their Conan game.
Right.
But yeah, that's what I feel. I feel like it's goodwill. A goodwill thing that they probably didn't need to do, that I'm kind of, in a way, glad they did, and I didn't even think to ask for it, What do you guys think about this, since I've kind of expressed what I'm feeling about it right now?
I mean, this kind of thing's really cool. I like that they did it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, because from what I could tell, it was basically it updates from like previous version to the current version. If someone wanted to like update things, they could do it.
Mm-hmm.
That's what the point of this is. Yeah. Which is nice.
Mm-hmm.
It's just nice. Good on them.
Yeah.
It's nice that at least someone's picking it up and running with it.
Yeah, and again, I think it's just the fact that it's between companies, between editions, and they are giving enough information for both your characters and your source books, and it's free. That's it's sort of like it. I understand there is a big monetary portion of this because it's trying to really bring your old Mongoose publishing version of Conan, the D20 Conan players, up into the 2D20. And that's not a bad thing to do in that end. So there is definitely a monetary component to this. I definitely understand that. But they're doing it in a very goodwill way, which, for someone that probably... I didn't play any of the Conan games. I've been interested in the Mophidius one. That one looks cool. But now I'm not discouraged if I go to some kind of thrift store and I might see a cheap version of an old D20 Mongoose Conan book. I could get it and use it then if I wanted to. And I'd have the conversion guide for free.
Also, one of the things that I noticed when you look into it a little bit, apparently it was the conversion guide was actually created not by the people who are currently working on Conan, but the people who did the D20, the 1D20 system of Conan. Mm-hmm. They actually came in and made this for the people.
Well, apparently those two are now...
Well, they're part of it as well.
Yeah,
but
they're working...
came in as how do we help?
I think they're working for Mophidius in general. And they're oh, hey, we used to work for this company. We can help you guys out here, throwing this together.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Which is nice. And it's cool that they have actual people that, now, yes, granted, they're working for this company instead of the old one, but they're willing to help out and, willing to do this. I mean, that's cool. It's, it definitely, it's it's like if we need a goodwill story in the role-playing game universe, I feel like this is a little bit of one for, like, bridging things. Just, that was my 2 cents about the entire thing, that I wanted to kind of reiterate upon.
Right.
Mm-hmm. All right. If you guys don't have anything, we can move on to the next topic I had. I want to talk about Ankur, Kingdom of the Gods. So, yeah. Ankur is an interesting role-playing game system that's just come out. And interesting is the best way I can describe it so far. So, it's set in the past, but it's also a sci-fi fantasy. So, it's an alternate version of our world set, I think they say, 10,000 or 25,000 years in our past. Oh no,
I think it's even supposed to be alternate, from what I read.
Yeah, it's a timeline that takes place on Earth just after the Great Flood.
Yeah, it's supposed to be like if the old stories were true, kind of
like,
if the concept of like aliens coming as like, or if like the aliens created the like people or whatever.
Yeah, it's got aliens, magic, and like
it actually doesn't have magic.
Floods. Well,
they say it's technically technology.
Yes,
that
technically technology. Yes,
appears as if it's magic because we don't understand it.
Yeah,
but
they describe that the one aliens have gold mines to produce mana, which is their energy source, which sounds very yes, magical, but of course yes, it is. But it's there's a bunch of cataclysms, disasters. They've got genetic manipulation on their humanoid slaves, which I guess are us in a way. And so now you can explore forgotten ruins, find ancient alien technologies, strange monsters, remnants of prehistoric past. So I'm like, can we like run into a dinosaur or something in this game? That's what it sounds like when they're like remnants of prehistoric pasts.
Well, I think it's kind of like, okay, because they have the races, the Adamu, which is humans basically, then the like Enkidu, which is basically like the missing link. Balu, which is basically Neanderthals.
Yeah.
Gurma, I'm not entirely sure.
Neanderthals.
Those are Neanderthals? Wait, then what's the Balu?
The Enkidu are Yeti.
Yeah.
The Garma are Neanderthals. The Balu are Pygmies.
Oh, Pygmies. Yes. Okay,
and the Ahadi are Coneheads. Really?
Yeah, like Mayans. Not Mayans. Incas.
Yeah. They're like kind of alien-y, but not alien-y kind of thing. Yes, they're like it's a terrible reference, but the alien skull from Kingdom of the Crystal, from Indiana Jones, the Crystal Skull.
Okay, I was thinking when it said Coneheads, actual Coneheads.
It does look a little like that, also.
It's based off the Incas who actually would like to have the practice of elongating their skull.
Right. Yeah. Gotcha. Okay, good. Because I was going to say, like, really, Coneheads?
Well, they're going out backwards from the images I can see of them. They're not, like, straight up. They're sort of, like, going back behind their head a little bit.
It's still based off the concept, though.
Okay, yeah, it says, collectively, these species are all referred to as Luki, Earthmen, or Lulu, man-men. I'm a man-men.
And they have a caste system, apparently, which is healers, entertainers, soldiers, and psionists.
Soldier, scribe, healer, scout, engineer, entertainer, and psionicist, yeah.
Yep. So, I mean, they have an interesting that they, like, sort of, like, though it's a class, they call it a caste, which does have a different kind of annotation to it. That makes you... That's a very interesting annotation to it, because it is sort of like an older society that it's sort of... Maybe it's a little bit more like you were born into this situation and kind of pushed into it. And yeah, and they are a non-level based system, so they're a skill based system, which is cool.
They're a D12 system too, aren't they?
Let me check the core mechanics.
Ankur uses a 12-sided die for conflict resolution rather than a 20-sided die.
Yeah, it's a D12 system.
I didn't actually look at the rules. I love them for that. D12s are the best.
Oh, D12 system. It's like, I'm sorry, you kind of won me over a little bit with that one, definitely too. Yeah. And the setting is just ridiculously weird and interesting, and I think that's the best way of saying it. Because we're like alternate ancient history with aliens, alien technologies, and like cavemen and stuff. I mean, it's a ridiculous system, and it sounds like it wouldn't work when you just start describing stuff about it. But when you like read through everything for it, it's like, wow, this is actually really interesting.
They also have, excuse me, karma points.
Yeah.
Which you can earn and then spend to either reroll a failed action, reduce an incoming damage by 1 wound per karma point, 1 automatic action success, or one automatic critical success.
Yeah. And it looks like, looking through a little bit of their bestiary, they do have some like dinosaurs and stuff too, because they apparently have like a plesiosaur type creature you can fight.
Everybody do the dinosaur.
Exactly. And they've snake men. Yes. Snake men. They're the last indigenous species of reptiles that ruled the earth but in a prior age. They're snake men, which are really like dinosaur men. Oh god, I love it. No, there's just such little like weird things, like bring in a lot of like weird sci-fi and fantasy tropes and put them all together, and it's really fun. It feels like, you know, the old Land of the Lost series a little bit in there too, and like some of the images too just bring me back into some of like the classic like 70s and 80s sci-fi also. Definitely. That they're like a little bit of ridiculousness to these entire things, but I don't know. I think it's pretty cool.
I need to get some D12s with Deck and L.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean by that? I'm very curious.
I do not know what you mean by that.
So it is the so I'm actually of this I just quick side step. I'm actually of this opinion, or tangent. But I'm of this opinion that we should all be learning to do stuff in base 12, because base 12 is so much better than base 10. And so it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 deck L. That's how you count. That's 11 and 12 or that's 10 and 11 in base 12.
Okay.
I will accept this. It has been a while since I've done base of anything over 10. Many a year since I played around with that.
As a computer scientist, I've done, there's base 2, base 16. So I'm used to doing stuff on other bases, which is why I'm just kind of like, base 12 is better than everything else.
I took one math class where I could do it, and I could probably remember how to do it if I like pulled out the stuff again. But again, it's like off the top of my head, I would not remember conversions between different bases, but I remember I had to do a lot of it at a time period. But I respect base 12, as I respect other bases.
Best.
All your bases belong to us.
Anyway, so yes, but they have a whole bunch of products for it out now on Drive-Thru RPG. Hardcover, softcover, things like that. You can get them. Softcover is $35. Yeah, not terrible for a book.
How much is the hardcover?
Standard heavyweight is $60. You can get a premium heavyweight for $70. And the PDF's only $15. So, but it's a pretty big book, and you can get a free character sheet though. So I mean that's always an advantage.
Woo!
And they already have some other products out for it too.
You mean like the free character sheet that comes in like D&D books that you never use because you don't want to tear it out?
God no! So you always have to either get it online or like print it out somehow, or
scan it and print it.
Oh god, that was the old days. Nowadays, where you can get a PDF of it, you don't have to worry about that.
Yeah, I mean, Wizards literally just has a free PDF you can download, so...
But I remember the old days where you had to be like, well...
Down to the copy machine.
Out to the copy machine.
Yeah.
I remember using the copy machine.
Because you didn't want to tear out the one sheet. out of your book and use it.
Yeah, I mean it's part of the book there. It's wrecking the book.
And then also, what happens when you need another one?
You're SOL. Anyway, so that's Ankur, Kingdom of the Gods, where apparently your gods are aliens from an alien planet that are here to take our gold. Because that's a thing.
All my gods are aliens.
Well, that's good to know. Anyway, all right. Why don't we move on to the last RPG topic I have for today? Sea of Stars, the light version of it, is up on RPG Drive-Thru. So, I did want to talk about this because we've seen different previews of different books and stuff, and this is a, I believe a different type of preview, I would maybe almost call it a little bit, because it's like part of a book. Why don't I like go over this a little bit more? So, there's a Sea of Stars RPG that's going to be released, and they're releasing a primer, effectively, is what it is. Next year is when the full version is going to be coming out. But this is a hype system, which is not bad. So they're showing off systems and settings in this light version that's got just core mechanics. So it's just it allows you to do test runs. So it would be like it feels like they're releasing things that maybe play testers got, but in a little bit more solidified form. And so, but going into what the setting is, it's one third of the galaxy has a galactic civilization, the Galactic Republic of Civilizations. There's 7 races, no major military, conflicts are going on. It's supposed to be, I think they say 13 million human cubic light years is this civilization. And there's always something that you can earn something on. And there's always something going on at the problem. There's the fringe, where there's things that are like a little more dangerous. Peace isn't as strong. And you're supposed to take roles of things like pirates, smugglers, mercenaries, or even politicians. Which I like that they add that into there. That like, oh, you could also be a politician. And it's all about this sprawling setting of the Sea of Stars. I feel like this is granted, we have a lot of takes on space-based RPGs, at least as of late, too. But I feel like this is a little bit of a different one. You're both maybe helping to maintain peace, but also taking advantage of a situation where it's an uneasy peace in this large empire part of. There's no major galactic conflicts or major problems really going on in the background. It's just you and the society. And I think that's a difference between a lot of these space-based RPGs. A lot of them oftentimes have some kind of terrible cataclysm or some kind of conflict as a setup. Or easily allow that there's always like warring factions, or maybe war just ended, but it could break out any time. This is just like, no, we're at a group of civilizations which are republic, and there's still tension between all of us, and there always will be, because it's a massive third of the galaxy civilization. So of course there's always going to be tensions between one end of the galaxy spanning area to the other,
Basically, it's like how America was way back in the beginning.
Yeah.
Where it was actually the United States of America. They were,
Yeah, where the states
they were
definitely like together, but also, they
did their own thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where?
But
yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead. I was just gonna let you go ahead. You go ahead.
Okay. I was gonna like switch a little bit, but just say like, yeah, this is kind of interesting though, because it's like, the reason it's like a galaxy is because there was one world that was basically destroyed through somatic cataclysm, but was only barely saved by magic, and then stuff like that. So it's kind of interesting. I'm very annoyed by this one little section though. Dragons are rarely seen. Bad game.
No. More dragons.
And then they have a picture just of like 80 dragons, like on this one picture on their website. It's like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dragons are rarely seen, except in this one location.
yeah.
That's where they all go together to mate.
Mm-hmm. The Dragon Queen cast down her lands and free to rule. Yeah. I like space dragons. There's very little excuse to use space dragons. So this is a campaign setting. That's the big thing about this. This is a campaign setting with specifically like a lot of rules for how they're altering their mechanics for space and stuff. And the main system that they're using it for is Pathfinder, or pretty much, 3.5 D&D, because they're pretty synonymous. But as again, they say it is adaptable to other game systems, especially other D20 systems. It's probably pretty easy to throw things together with, because most of the D20 systems are relatively adaptable to each other, relatively speaking.
I'll be completely honest. I feel like they should have focused on 5e, not because Pathfinder just got Starfinder.
Yeah.
Right.
And I feel like that's actually kind of probably going to hurt them a little bit in the long run, because it's like, well, Pathfinder just got a space thing.
Right, where D&D doesn't have one currently.
No.
Yeah.
They're thinking about bringing back Spelljammer.
Right.
Yeah.
Which would be really cool, but
we love to jam those spells.
No, and that thing I definitely would think would be a very awesome thing. And the thing is, like, when you talk about it, yes, there is this, like, they're not shying away, because they are using a D20 system, and in particular Pathfinder, from having that kind of, like, background of magic and magic items and all that stuff. But I feel like when they're talking about their setting, like especially on the information they provide with the light book, they're not focusing on that. That's something that it's like when some of these other like pseudo historical things for alternate worlds, where they take our world and they're like, oh, but magic was here. It's like our society, just with that undercurrents of magic. Which I always find an interesting sort of thing, is that's like, it's not a forefront of stuff, but it's there. And I think that always helps out some of these systems, especially the sci-fi systems, because then it feels like it's more integrated, when you pretend it's integrated, it feels more integrated.
Yeah.
So.
But yeah, I just think that's one thing where it's like, if you're gonna do something general, I probably would have focused it a little bit more towards 5e in terms of just explanation.
Yeah, I can understand that. Yeah, I definitely agree. That 5e doesn't have a lot for space-based stuff now, but depending on how long they've been working on this, that might be another thing too.
Yeah, it could have been before Starfinder came out, but they started working on it, and now they're like, oh, well, this is what we did.
Yeah. And this could be a way of also, like showing off of like, hey, when we put this out, this is what you can expect. You should check us out too. And I mean, granted, it is $10 for the PDF or $15 for a softcover book. And is that super cheap? No. Is that super expensive? No also. But if you're interested in space-based games, maybe this setting will be uniquely different for you, because it is definitely a different take on the way that Starfinder does things. So,
but with the $5 difference, you might as well just get the softcover.
Yeah, I mean, softcovers are pretty awesome. It's a black and white book. They say softcover black and white book, which I mean, it's fine. Yeah.
Okay, you are right. I'm looking at their like history or whatever, and they started working on this back in 2015.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you could also get the watermarked PDF softcover plus the softcover black and white book for 20.
Ooh.
Mm-hmm. So yeah,
nifty. Yeah,
actually, and the project was backed September 31st, 2014. So that's when it was first backed.
Yeah. So it was before Starfinder
was announced.
way before Starfinder was
Granted,
announced.
again, Starfinder they might have been working on it still back then because
Oh, of course, but it wasn't announced yet.
Yeah,
so
people didn't know about it back then. Yeah,
Right.
So that's an
So it
important-
makes sense.
Yeah, and that's the thing is once you build a system with core mechanics, it might be hard to change that, and they might have felt that they didn't need to focus as much on the core mechanics after that. Granted, some depending on what they built for their own, systems to put into Pathfinder, it might be that they needed a lot of work to adapt mechanics and play test it and stuff, and maybe focusing on settings might be a better idea anyway. We don't know.
Well, what year did 5th edition come out too? I'm trying to think.
I will.
That 5e came back in I think it was 2010, wasn't it?
God, has it been that long?
Oh,
maybe.
I feel like it came out when I was in high school. Let's see.
That's not what I wanted.
I'm just looking at the copyright on my book. There's
Yeah.
handbook.
The copyright would probably be relatively accurate.
There it is. Copyright 2014. Yeah.
2014
so-
is 5th edition came out.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so so it came out the same year that they started working on this, so that's probably also why they didn't focus on 5e.
That makes sense too. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's what I was thinking. I don't think 5e's that old, so
I
could've
thought
been
it was a
around
little
the
bit
same
older
time.
than it was. So yeah,
God.
I'm surprised how young it is.
Yeah, well, I remember they had the play tests back in 2012, 2013 or something, and I remember not being impressed by the playtest material for 5e. That's all I remember about it. When I was playing Pathfinder, I was like, oh, this is interesting.
Well, Pathfinder was the 4th edition that we wanted.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah. I mean, they got 8 years of 3rd edition, including the 5 years of 3.5, and then 4th edition did last 6 years on its own, but still.
Yeah.
I like the
But I remember-
concept.
It was a good concept, but it played out more like an MMO on pen and paper.
Well, that's the thing is I feel like if you really are in a campaign for it, you'd have to plan it out like a video game. And I think you could do it and actually make it fun. But you just have to very much plan it out, have a map, have your everything very...
It was definitely both a video game and a board game combined, because you almost needed a board game. Every encounter was so exact. As I remember, we were doing some of the pre-made adventures in 4th edition, and it was just oh, we have to make sure we know it's this many squares this way, this many squares that way, and it was just you need a board in front of you.
That was one you could not just conceptualize in the mind.
No, unfortunately, just the nature of the combat system just did not allow for it. Not easily. You probably could, but it would take you as the game master setting up stuff appropriately, which means extra work.
And having players who are good with spatial recognition, which we have one player who is not good with spatial recognition whatsoever.
No. So we would not have been able to do it with him. If one of us was running, he couldn't have ran it either. Then
No.
Not without a board. But yeah, so Sea of Stars, the light version is available now, and if this interests you, I would recommend maybe getting it, checking it out, and the full version will be coming out next year. That's when they get the full book out. So they do warn you though, this is text heavy, because the point is to, in a small book, give you everything about the setting and some basics about their system. To get you hyped up for what they're fully putting out. Alright, let's move on. I want to talk about the state of CCGs. If you saw me on Gathering the Roll this week, which maybe some of you did, maybe some of you didn't, I talked about 2 CCGs that are some of the more popular ones that have had releases. We have seen, of course, Magic is kind of king. But we do have others to this empire of CCGs. Pokemon, the trading card game, which, I thought would die years ago, has kept going. Yu-Gi-Oh! Somehow still remains strong, even though, their animated series, which were a driving force of them, have fallen out completely. And though I don't see it as much...
I think some of the manga is still going, though.
Mm-hmm.
Not certain about that, though.
Maybe. But they do they did a billion different TV series too for a while.
Yeah.
And then Cardfight Vanguard, which is an anime series, as someone that does also do some like conversions of anime to RPGs, I know of Cardfight Vanguard. I've seen it played here in the U.S., but I don't think it's as major as it is in like Japan, where it is, you know, an ongoing anime series. But it is here in the U.S., and you can find it in a bunch of places. You know, I've been to conventions and I've seen people playing Cardfight Vanguard. And I know there's a couple other ones which are big CCGs still, but let's sort of focus on what we want to talk about for these three. Now, I think Pokemon is doing an interesting thing because, at least as of lately, as someone that, you know, again, I report on it on Gathering the Roll, they've focused on their video game. Sun and Moon is very popular. It's one of the better Pokemon games they've had in years, you know. It's like, from what it sounds like, it revitalized the series a little bit, you know. I played the original and then Gold and Silver, and that was my last time of playing Pokemon. So there was a whole lot of games in there that I completely missed. Granted, again, I don't have the system to play Sun and Moon, but it looked interesting enough that they changed things and sort of fixed things. Now we're focusing on that for the a Sun and Moon main set, and just they put out an expansion based upon that same, you know, setting. And this is something that seems like it is a good move for them, you know?
Right.
I mean, like, on the other hand, we have, like, Yu-Gi-Oh!, which I feel like just does what it does and stays strong on it, you know, kind of thing.
I'm just going to say this now. I know absolutely nothing about those three games.
I've seen some of the two animes, both Cardfight and Yu-Gi-Oh!, so I could tell you some basic rules of them. And I tried Pokemon when it first came out, when Wizards was making the cards. And that was the last time I tried that game.
The only thing I know about them is I remember the one game store that was in Lansdale was making fakes.
Oh, God.
And got shut down for doing so.
Pokemon cards, there was some abysmal stuff to do with them, you know, back in the day. And that's something that we can't deny that they've had problems with, you know, counterfeiting, problems with young kids in schools. It was like, as much as, you know, you can complain about sometimes Magic's base of people, sometimes you get them, I feel like, at least in those early days, Pokemon was worse. And Yu-Gi-Oh's just been too much math for me always.
Wait. Coming from the math major, it was too much math.
When I'm playing a game, I don't expect the amount of math that they try to, like,
It's like addition!
I don't know what you're talking about. It's terrible.
I think it's just hilarious.
It's just addition.
I think it's just hilarious coming from the math major that it's too much math.
Too much math, sorry. Nope. Boop, gone.
Yeah, I when I saw that you wanted to do this, I actually read up a little bit on more recent stuff for Yu-Gi-Oh! So. Yeah.
Well, it's like, they apparently have, like, Link summoning or something, which...
Yeah, that is, like, weird. So, like, it requires other monsters to summon. You can put them in these extra monster slots. You need to sacrifice a certain number of monsters. They're, like, linked to the other monsters. It's weird. I stopped playing around the time XYZ monsters came out, and I never really even got into what those did. Well, but since then, there's synchro monsters, pendulum monsters, and now link monsters.
Well, I think Yu-Gi-Oh! Has always been big on the secondary market anyway for their products. It seems like, because they have very small packs of cards with, you know, like, oh, we have like a rare or something from what I've observed as of, you know, looking at them. Though I think Cardfight Vanguard suffers from some of that too. So
okay, yeah, because like when it comes to Yu-Gi-Oh, it's just it starts. Okay, I just decided to look up what the Pendulum monsters did. They're monsters that can be used as either spells or monsters. So they have two effects. One if you place them down in the spell card area, and one if you place them in the monster card area. And it's kind of just like, so basically they're just a 2-for-1 card. Gosh dang it, Yu-Gi-Oh! Why do you keep making so many other things obsolete? Like no one cares for Monster Reborn anymore.
Well, I think like it's when we look at like Pokemon, I think they've really like literally stayed the course and maybe just introduced more things like.
That's the thing; they're just increasing them like monster category, like all the stuff they have,
Yeah, and then they're also like, oh, we now have like all the different types of monsters in our cards. When I remember the early days, they were like, oh, well, we have like 5 different types of monsters we're producing in cards. You know, they've expanded what it is, and it makes sense, you know, of course, to expand it. But yeah, they've pretty much stayed the course, and it's worked. Card Fight, on the other hand, I mean, I have seen some of the anime. It got to a point in time where A, I just didn't have enough time, and B, it was just too ridiculous and weird to continue going on with it long ago. But I feel like that always mimics the anime a little bit, from what I've seen also while paying attention to the products they release. You know, like, I think Yu-Gi-Oh! Probably did that for a period of time, but then they don't have any anime ongoing. You know, Card Fight has a series, like, seemingly going, like, once a year. And they've had, like, that going on for, I don't know, like 7 or 8 years now, I'm sure it's been at least. And so, it's an advertisement, you know?
Yeah.
And that's, I think, what the original Yu-Gi-Oh! Series, to a degree, was. But the manga, I think the manga came out before the game or around the game. God. Now I've got to Wikipedia something because I have to remember exactly when everything came out for Yu-Gi-Oh! Because I remember talking to someone, and if you would take a look at the blah blah blah. Okay, that came out.
Blah.
Yes, in '97. Oh yeah, the manga came out in '96, and the card game came out in '97. Now they might have planned for that, but that they came out together. But the manga was technically older than the card game system, and the manga, like from what I've heard from people, is actually like decent. It doesn't have the same, like, you know, ridiculous card game advertisement as the anime series, you know, does. But hey, you know, they've gone on to do billions of those, and the last one was, oh god, it was this year. They did do a Yu-Gi-Oh! Series this year. God.
So, looking at these monsters. Okay, so the Pendulum monsters, okay, sure, dumb. Like, okay, trap or monster, way to get more bang for your buck, Yu-Gi-Oh! You've always made that kind of the meta, which is why previous things just become obsolete. It's annoying. XYZ monsters, okay, not so bad, because they're kind of like fusion monsters that just require very specific summoning requirements, but don't require the polymorph thing or whatever. Synchro monsters, they require a specific monster and some other things sacrificed to summon it. Link monsters are kind of interesting because they're actually placement specific, so they affect areas on the board based on where they are placed on the board.
Now, I'm going to have to say something interesting because Link monsters, I know that for a fact Card Fight came out with Link monsters at some point in time. Did one influence the other?
It depends, maybe in name, but I don't know what Card Fight Link monsters do, so I can tell you.
I think they were like 2 monsters you could effectively use as one or something, because as I recall from my knowledge of that game, you always had like one. Was that one the one that you had one thing attacking and the rest in like defensive positions or something? God. Memory never serves me correctly, you know? Anyway.
Yeah, so the way the link monsters work is they require like specific sacrifices, then you play them, and then they have like an effect that applies directly across the field. So it's like if you have them in like, one monster slot, they apply directly across, but they have limitations on where they can be placed based on like where the monsters you sacrificed were. They're kind of interesting, and they can be used to chain each other. So like you can use link monsters like without sacrificing other link monsters as sacrifices for link monsters. It's something like that or something. I don't know. I'm not reading it super carefully because I literally was like looking at it this morning, and it's very complex. The other ones are way more straightforward. They're just different ways of doing fusions, which is like, okay, that's fairly standard. These ones are weird, though.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, we definitely have seen a lot of expansion on this entire, like, setup of stuff for these games. They've evolved, is kind of what we're saying. And I think they've done a good job of evolving with the times and staying interesting enough to keep people going in them, because we can see them going still. And like, I mean, again, like Card Fight has their animated series. Yu-Gi-Oh still puts out an animated series. They're not constant, it seems like, but they're still throwing out an animated series here and there, enough to keep people interested, once every year, every other year. So that's a way of keeping themselves in the minds of people. Oh, go ahead.
Okay, Pendulum Monsters are actually kind of cool, too, because they actually have 2 slots they can be placed in, and they do different effects based on which magic slot they're placed in, or they can just be played as a monster.
Huh.
I guess it's kind of like in a pinch. So it's like the reason they're Pendulum is because you either place them on the right magic trap slot or the left magic trap slot, and they do different things depending on which side you place them on. Which is kind of interesting, because it's like, okay, these can be used for other things, or you could save them for these. It adds a little bit more interesting stuff, I guess. It's just, there's kind of this point with Yu-Gi-Oh! That I started to really hate towards the end, where it's just like, okay, how do I get this monster? Because it's like, I need this one thing to do another thing, and it's like, well, if the person kills it, or if they destroy my hand, or it's just kind of like, how do you balance around that? It's so hard. And it never made much sense to me, because you can only have a certain number of cards, or like you can only have like 3 of this one monster, it's just like you can only have 3 of one monster, and so it's just like you can't rely on it, and they're kind of crap if you don't use them properly, and it's just kind of like, okay. Yeah.
There are intrinsic problems with some of the systems that aren't solved by more cards.
Yeah.
And I think
or more complex ways of summoning things. Oh, you don't just need this thing, you need this thing, and then you need to do this other thing with this thing as well. It's just like...
the question will be, because as having my series where I've gone back and looked at older CCGs and seen where their downfalls have been, there has definitely been, like, downfalls which are change of company. For example, like, Spellfire. But that's definitely, change of company. There's downfalls like, oh, let's see here, the entire Star Trek trading card game, which was forced to make a second edition, which by then they lost their popularity, because they did the exact same thing. They kept adding systems on top of systems which weren't always compatible. Now, granted, it sounds like Yu-Gi-Oh! Is doing a better job of keeping things, in quotations, compatible, but still, you can only pile so much on top before, like, the little base that you have at the bottom breaks.
By the way, did you know there are only 5 monster cards? 5. So, like, nowadays it's like you either have to have monsters have effects, or they're just garbage. And for that reason, there are only actually 5 banned monster cards, like monster cards without effects. There are only 5 of them. And do you want to know what they are?
What?
Left arm of the forbidden one, left leg of the forbidden one, right arm of the forbidden one, right leg of the forbidden one, and basically Exodia. Exodia is the only, and it technically has a special effect, but it just isn't like a special effect monster card.
Yeah.
And it's the only forbidden non-effect monster card. It's like basically the effects are basically all that make monster cards nowadays.
Which I think that's really terrible thing because, like,
Yeah.
if we look at Magic, you can still get, generic creature of certain size that's useful,
Yeah. Or even small creature could be useful because it could be a fodder.
Yeah.
Well, and it's not like these things can't be useful from what I remember. It's just they're not. It's like, well, if you could get something with the same stats but has an effect, why wouldn't you trade it out?
Right.
True. Which I mean,
And that was and I felt like, and you always had some for just cannon fodder or just that kind of stuff. Especially if you had like a magic card that could change the target, to one of them. They're not useless, but they're kind of, I think they really needed a system where these standard monster cards had their own advantage, and I just don't think that was ever built into the game.
Streamcat.
Dreamcat. Yep. So, yeah. So CCGs as they are now, the big ones. I don't think we're losing them anytime soon. I feel like definitely Pokemon's doing a great job. Yu-Gi-Oh! I worry about, as a big CCG that could fail because it does sound like they are on a trepidatious kind of cliff edge that they could possibly go over. And I sometimes feel the same way might be for Card Fight, but they have their animated series to help advertise them. Hi, Stream Niece. Why don't you go down? I'm in the middle of a share.
I was gonna say we almost went through an entire episode without a stream niece.
Yeah, but like with Yu-Gi-Oh, I don't think it's too bad. I think they just keep trying to one-up themselves, and I feel like that's kind of almost ruining them.
Yeah.
It's like, just make more of the same, It's like, you can, I mean, or I don't know, I guess that's not even the best thing. Or have variant rules or something that use different things, or make it so you can do different things. If you're going to reinvent the wheel, actually reinvent the wheel, not just add more to the wheel. Mm-hmm. I don't need a knife on my wheel. It's not a Swiss Army wheel.
I like a
Sure
Swiss
it
Army
is.
wheel. Haha! Swiss Army wheel.
No one ever expects the knife on your wheel.
This is accurate.
Or the screwdriver, or the toothpick.
Yes.
The most useful of all.
Yeah, true. Okay.
I've technically used all of those.
Why don't we move on, though, because we do want to get our ending. So why don't we go to Kickstarter Korner? And, of course, why don't we start with... Well, Joe, I think we did Wyrm last week. Let's start with Joe this week. I can't remember. I might be doing the same order as I did last week, but I'll pretend I know.
I think we did Wyrm last week first.
Oh, that's right, because you did it all the way at the end. So, hey.
Yeah.
There we go.
So I'm doing La Runa, Age of Kingdoms.
Yes.
I'm going to put the little thing in there. Boom, there's the link.
Yep.
So this one's an interesting one. You're basically, there's 6 kingdoms trying to gain favor from the new young gods.
Mm-hmm.
It's semi-cooperative / competitive because you want to be the one who ends up with the most favor. But to do so, you might have to, make trades and peace with certain enemies to gain more favor, and then maybe backstab them later.
Mm-hmm.
There's the 6 kingdoms. There's the Highland, which are kind of your knights in shining armor. The Mezzadrin, which are your Goths.
Yep.
They kind of worship death.
Mm-hmm.
Your Garwraith.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I can speak today.
Mm-hmm.
They are definitely all focused on war, and will find ways to take advantage of a situation to come ahead. So
And they're kind of dragony people, too.
a little bit dragony, a little bit wraithy too, from the look of them.
Yep.
I don't know how to say that one.
Apellisis?
Apellisis?
Yeah.
They're kind of your angelic force.
Yep.
You have the Renath, which are kind of more magic. Is that the magic?
Yeah,
that's
magic
the magic
users.
ones.
Yeah.
Probably more like Epilesses.
Epilesses. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. The Banath are more your magic users. They'll use forbidden magic and whatnot. You have the Norathian,
which are builders.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
They have catapults and gladiators and such. And the miniatures on these, even though they're not painted, are really finely detailed.
Yeah. No,
that's the only thing I would wish that they in the future will come out with a fully painted version. I know it's going to be a lot more.
But yes,
it's already. Oh, go ahead.
Oh yeah. Go ahead.
I was just going to say it's already a little bit more of an expensive game. The base pledge to get the game is $85.
Mm-hmm.
But considering you're getting the world map board, 70 miniatures, 6 kingdom mats, 42 worker meeples, 108 kingdom UPGR upgrade tiles. I can speak today.
Yeah.
60 agenda cards, 85 spells,
over 200 cards. Yeah.
And custom dice and resource tokens. You're getting a lot for that money.
Almost 300 cards, actually.
Yeah.
Wow. Now, I like about this one, which I thought interested me a little bit, was that you have 3 components to it, because you're managing your own kingdom and resource gathering for that kind of thing. Then you're managing the map, which is like battling with each other, taking over territories and things like that.
And then you have the social interaction.
Yeah. So it's like a combat game and a resource management game thrown together.
And a social game.
And a social game, yes, because you can make all those interesting deals with each other, too. Definitely.
Yeah. So, I mean, for the price and what you're getting, it's definitely worth it. It is a little bit on the higher end.
Yeah. Now, they have what? They're about...
They've made $20,728 out of $35,000 goal. And they have 19 days to go and 186 backers. So they're only 15,000, little less than 15,000 away.
They're over halfway. They're like approaching the 2/3 mark funding. So they're doing pretty good.
Yeah, and they have 19 days left, so they have more than enough time to make that.
Yeah. No, this was definitely an interesting one. Yeah,
the artwork is great on the cards, and like I said, the figurines themselves are really intricate.
Yeah, and they have interesting factions too. I do agree with you. This was a pretty cool one to talk about. So yeah, I don't think I. Well, go ahead.
Dragon faction is a plus in my book.
Dragon faction plus. And apparently there's no player elimination. Right. It's just that
if you defeat someone in battle, they still continue on.
Yeah, they just, I guess, lose stuff out,
Yeah, you may lose a bunch of points, but the end game is so many rounds. So, you might lose the war, but you might gain enough grace from the gods by doing other things.
Yep.
And it's like, well, I sucked at war, but I kissed God's ass pretty well.
And it's made to be easy to learn, which I'll interesting to see what they do. And because it is multiple combinations, because you can do all the different kingdoms and stuff too, and various sort of splits up. I guess you could have up to 6 players.
I'm guessing since there's 6 kingdoms, I don't see like a time frame listed for how long the game averagely takes.
They unfortunately don't seem to talk about that directly, which I mean, there are
videos that I didn't get a chance to watch. They might talk about it in that.
Yeah, and they do have some interesting extras that you can get too, adding some of the stuff that they're going to be producing along with it. And apparently, oh, that's right, there's apparently a Dreamscape, the Lunara RPG that already exists, that you can get along with this if you wanted to. So this is a game based on, which I didn't have a chance to look that up, the Dreamscape La Runa.
La Runa.
Yeah.
That's the only thing is some of these names are very hard to pronounce.
So I just decided to look at their partial playthrough of the game is an hour and 47 minutes long.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Long game.
Yeah, they had kickstarted the
they call it
RPG
partial playthrough.
back in 2016, it looked like, and they got funded there. So, I mean, it is a game that I guess you could get now technically on its own if you wanted the RPG version of it, but you can also get it for $30 as part of the Kickstarter. Hey,
That's cool.
yeah. And there are kind of couple of expansions they want to put out with it too. You can get at the same time. But anyway, so yeah, Lunara is out now. It's a very interesting looking board game. You can check it out. Why don't we move on to Wyrm though and talk about the Kickstarter you want to discuss?
Yes, so I want to discuss Kitty Quest.
Yep.
Which is it's cute and amusing. So effectively, you each have your little tokens, which are like your kitties, and you're trying to get home from where you started. And the first player to the end wins. This is basically like, if you think about it, a standard board game where you just kind of travel along the path and you have events happen. But the cool thing about this that makes this unique is you build the board either randomly or, by choice. You can kind of do it however you want. But basically, what they do is you have your basically either you have your players taking turns where it's like, and you have like a random deck you can just shuffle if you want to do it random, or you can do like, okay, well, I'm going to do it random, but then I'm going to do like this split path thing, and you can have it recombine, and it goes up and then down. And there are rules based around that. Like if you want to go up or down, you have to land exactly on this tile, so it kind of makes some things interesting. You can play with multiple pawns. If you do split paths that don't recombine, you can say, okay, well, you have to have both of your pawns make it to each end. And there's lots of other like event cards, like one of them's called Ew Gum. And actually, I should probably post the link for this.
Yes.
No, there we go. And so there's Ew Gum, where you lose a turn, which is a little cat stepping in gum. It's cute.
No, I like about this that you could literally have it that you could change surfaces. Granted,
Yeah.
I guess you could always play on the same board, but like...
To be fair, you can have the up and down cards without having to actually traverse surfaces.
Yes.
But they made an effort to be like, okay, in the demo they had the box for the game, and they went up the box, and then they put it on the box, and they went down the box. Yeah. It was kind of amusing because they're like, oh yeah, play on multiple surfaces. I'm like, that's kind of unnecessary, but it's pretty amusing at the same time.
Well, since it is 6+, I get a feeling that, like playing that with some younger kids would entertain the crap out of them. Like if you'd move from the tabletop to the floor or something,
Oh, of course. Yeah, no, it'd be great for younger kids.
So it's kind of a Chutes and Ladders card game with kittens.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Although, to be fair, the up and down, they only have, I think, one of each. The up, down, and then the splitting path, they only have one of each, I think. But I think they should probably include a couple of each. So you could really customize the board to do it how you want.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because, it's Ladder, Slide, and Crossroads, cards 3.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
But that's the one thing that I would probably say they need to change, is that they just need to have probably 3 of each. Because that would make someone like me, it's like, okay, yeah, you can go this path or this path, which will have, either this event or this event, and if this one has go back to the beginning, but this path is shorter, So if you land on that, go back to the beginning card, or you could go around the other way. And I feel like you could do that a couple times and make things really interesting. Go up and down a couple times, and it's just like, I feel like that almost would make the game really fun for someone like me, who you could really mess with people.
Yeah.
Well, part of the stretch goals, it looks like they do have additional slide and go up cards.
Oh, it's part of the stretch goals. Okay.
Yep. So they're 2/3 of the way funded with 18 days to go, and they only want 1,500. So they're not looking for a huge amount of money to get their copies of this game out.
But to get the additional to get one more ladder, slide, and crossroad cards, you have to get they want to get to 5,000. So let's get them there.
Yes, let's indeed get them there.
Well, they've captured one stretch goal, so you get 20 more additional path cards and 2 more event cards.
Mm-hmm.
I think they had 2 different ones that had additional up and downs. Yeah, if you get to 5,000, there's one more additional of up, down, and choose path. And if they get to 10,000, there's another additional one up and down.
Oh, they do have some of those the social media stretch goals too. You know,
Yeah.
Which
Yeah.
I always find those as very interesting because it's like you could make these, but you're choosing not to just because you want to make sure people love it and share it. And I understand the reasoning behind it, but it's like, I guess it's more like, you know, it's a level of this is extra work we could manage, but you know, maybe
If people really want these, they'll do it for us.
they'll show us that we should do it, you know, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Because also it will help to get more money anyway. So
But yeah, if they reach all their stretch goals though, that'll be 132 cards, a dice, 12 pawns, and 12 pawns as part of the game.
well, you know, that's 10,000. It's doable if a little bit more, you know, like word of mouth out there, and this probably helps it out. So, you know,
It's
that's
the gallery of on the bottom of the page is really cute. They have like the path building going around dinner plates.
yeah, yep. That's definitely a little cute little thing. All right. If you don't have anything else to say about that, I can talk about some other Kickstarter stuff on my end. If that's okay. We're good. Okay.
Yeah, I'm good.
All right, so I do have a quick shout out to a friend of the show who's going to have a Kickstarter going up tomorrow. Jay, or the Glistener Elf on YouTube, who does Magic the Gathering content, has been on the show before with his young daughter to bond over small children that make noise. He actually, now this is not technically tabletop related, but he's got a children's book coming out that he's kickstarting it to finish the illustrations for. So
Cool.
Yep, he's having it go live tomorrow. I wanted to shout it out now. I'll probably tweet something out about it tomorrow and probably share a link with it. He's a good friend of the show, and if you're, you know, want to check that out, you know, go ahead. So,
Do you know what the book's on?
he hasn't given me a huge amount of. It's based upon his daughter's lullaby. He said,
Okay.
you know, so it's probably, you know, cute and, you know, relaxing little story.
Cool.
So, all right. But to move into the tabletop related ones, there are a couple of basic shout outs before I talk about the one I really wanted to dive into, because I had like 2 interesting ones I wanted to maybe dive into. But for the shout outs, I do want to shout out Dragon Conquers America. Their season 1 Kickstarter has gone off. We talked about that on the show before, that they had the free book of information, and it was kind of an interesting setting, set in Mesoamerica with Spanish invasion of Mesoamerican, but in an alternate history where, you know, was it George who fought the dragon? He tamed it instead, and so
Yes.
he converted to Christianity. So European dragons are apparently Christian.
Can we have a dragon pope?
Sure,
Sweet.
but that's the thing, and they're up on now. I want to shout out to
Also, as a Christian and a dragon lover, I approve.
The mighty Draco the Pope the First.
Well, I mean, they have done a lot of interesting things with that setting, so that's why, you know, I love a good shout out for them, because we did talk about how cool they did a lot of stuff for it. But
Oh yeah, and they kept a lot of the cultural references and really did a good job with it.
and they didn't shy away from some of the horrible things that the Spanish did, which was a good thing about it. If they're doing a historical game, they're like, yeah, Spanish aren't doing good things anyway here, and we, you know, this was a time period where this is how this happened, and we have to respect that, you know.
Yep.
Shout out to B Horror, a tabletop RPG horror game where you might die and still win, because you're trying to get script points, which script points might be something like, you know, being the slutty character, or dying by a vice, or something like that, you know. So a lot of
kill spree.
Yeah, kill spree. A lot of those, you know, like bad, you know, B-movie things, and you have to earn a number of script points to defeat the monsters, kind of things, you know, or use them to help defeat the monsters that they have requirements to use them for. So it's an interesting concept of a system. definitely that it's based around the fact that your character might die. So,
And they have it in Espanol.
yes, they do. So shout out to them. I wanted to shout out to Seven Worlds, which is a campaign. I believe you can use it in. Oh, it's Fate. It's for the Savage Worlds, which I think is supposed to be Fate accelerated. But I think the cool thing about them is they have star maps that you can use to navigate, and they have a 3D map you can use, of course, on the computer. That you can literally have it open it up on your laptop and be like, oh, my people are navigating from this world to this world, and like be able to map it out really coolly. Or they do have a 2-dimensional map if you if you can't bring out the laptop. So I think their star maps are what brought me to like talking about them, and they're really cool because of that, you know. And you know, interesting space-based systems they are, and they're funded in getting out there. And also, oh, that's right. They try to adhere to science with their systems. So that's something that they pride themselves on.
Science?
I know, science. So that system is out. Shout out to QED because it's the game of being in college. Because that was just weird and I wanted to see that one. Because it's a resource management game and a combative game. Where the resource management is going to college. And the combat is making debates about stuff at night. It's so weird. I wanted to shout it out. It's a weird kind of game.
Interesting.
I know.
And it's British.
It is British. And the last shout out is one that I felt was an interesting one. And it's pretty close to being backed. It's like 75% of the way to it with 18 days to go. It's Operators the RPG, where they're saying it's like you're playing in a Mission Impossible or Tom Clancy or Jason Bourne sort of movie in an RPG. And it's made to be of like kinetic fight sequences where they have a deck of cards with different maneuvers you use with different effects. So it's sort of like you have like kinetic fight scenes where you play out, I have a flying knee I'm throwing out, you know, kind of things like that. and you play the flying knee card. So it definitely is a unique with a fight deck and a spy thriller kind of view. But the one that stood out for me that I chose to really talk about is Lockwood Asylum, a survival horror deck building game. Because this is an interesting one. Because it's deck building, but you're basically building what's protecting you from the horrors of this asylum where a lot of bad things are happening and the one like person's doing weird experiments, and you're basically then playing turns of building up your allies, which will help protect you, while you play monsters and horrors in other people's rooms. So I use my like deck building, except you build not only your own deck, but you help build opponents' decks all the time. Because you're throwing monsters and horrors into their decks to screw them up, you know, and to keep them in their rooms. And you use your allies to protect your health. And if your health gets reduced to 0, you're eliminated from the game, and the last survivor wins.
Interesting.
Yeah. So it has a lot of that normal deck building that you're trying to keep building those decks up kind of mentality. But I like the fact that you're attacking your opponents, but you're indirectly attacking them. You're throwing challenges of monsters and horrors against them, basically, and because it's going into your deck, you basically draw stuff, because you have like your start phase where you refill your asylum space, and you get your cards, and any monsters in your hand you play into your room, in the area in front of you. And you keep getting this until there are 4 monsters or no monster cards are in your hand. If you have any horror cards, they're also placed in the room. Then you play actions, purchases, and then battles. And you end your phase. So,
cool.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a very interesting card game. It feels a lot like those other card deck building games, of course, but has this unique element that you're playing against your own deck constantly. Because not because you're building your own deck at the same time. People are throwing stuff into your deck and making it bad for you to be there, you know? So you could get into this situation where you're just getting screwed over by your own one, you know? And so they've been funded, and they've gotten their first couple of stretch goals. You know, well, they got their first stretch goal, which is additional horrors, and if they can reach 12,000, they'll have a expansion with 25 cards. If they reach 14, they actually will provide a 50 full-page RPG campaign setting. That if you wanted to use this in a RPG, which I think is really cool. So, and they're adding more cards in and stuff, like more horrors and things like that. So,
well, they're well on their way. I mean, they already surpassed their original goal.
Yeah, they're almost at
by 877.
Yeah, they've only reached the 10,000. They have 15 days to go. So, this is definitely a cool one.
Yeah, they'll get their 2 more additional horrors.
Yep.
I mean, they might get all the way. They might at least get up to the 14, which is
the campaign setting, which I think is
campaign
really cool.
setting. Yeah.
Yeah.
And they have it blocked of what the 16 and the 20 would be.
Yes. And of course, if they would ever reach those, they probably would come up with something. Most people tend to be like, "No, we weren't really expecting this, but if we're getting close to it, we probably should plan for something we can throw out here also."
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they might already have something planned, but they're keeping it secret to try to maybe entice people.
That's
like,
true.
Ooh.
Yeah. And for $10, you get a print and play version, which print and plays are popular now, and that's not a bad price for print and play, or $35 for the print and play, the base game, and all stretch goals they unlocked. So,
yeah, you get that's really good. And then,
and if you think about it, that could be the expansion if it's all stretch goals. So if they hit the 12,000 where they get a Seeds of Evil expansion, you'd get that for the 35. So,
oh my god, 150, you get 6 base games.
Yeah. It's a retailer's package, they're saying, you know.
Yeah, I just think that's funny. It's like, wow.
If you want this at your store, yeah.
I'll be completely honest. I've been looking. I somehow missed this in the list of Kickstarter stuff. The Dragons Conquer America thing.
Well, I had to switch the link around today because apparently the old link wasn't working, and I'm hoping the new link.
Oh, that's what happened. That was the one I clicked on and didn't work. Okay, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, I'm like, how did I miss this? I would probably talk about this one.
Yeah, no.
The only reason I didn't go for that one was because we did do a decent talk on it before
when they released their free play information.
Yeah, so I figured you'd probably end up doing a shout out if we didn't talk about it. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Anyway, I've just been staring at that for the past 20 minutes. What have we been talking about? Mm-hmm. Not 20 minutes, but that's like 5-10 minutes.
Locked in the silo.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Why don't we move on to our This Week in Gaming? What we did.
Not much.
Mm-hmm.
I actually had a game this week.
Let you talk, Wyrm.
Let's see. Let me try and remember. Not much happened in the game. We finally got to a new town. An actual large town for once. We got kicked out of the last town we are in because we rescued a bunch of well, it was kind of a corrupt town, and we ended up 2 of our members ended up getting captured. 2 of our parties ended up getting captured, and they were like, oh yeah, you'll go free if you can win in the arena. Well, after they won in the arena, because they did commit a crime, but it's like, after they won in the arena, they're like, okay, cool, well now you're going to be shipped off to kind of do this other thing. I don't remember what it was specifically, but and it's like we freed them and all of the other people who apparently were in the same boat because the government is a bunch of scumbags. Anyway, we were kicked out of that town. We barely got out of there with no supplies. This is kind of like it's an Astral Sea kind of game where boat the sky ships or whatever, Mm-hmm. Anyway, so we barely got away with no supplies. We crippled. We went to another town. That ended up being interesting. Got enough supplies there though afterwards too. And then this is where the story we picked up was, okay, we finally got to this new town. Yay. Okay. But apparently there's some sort of prophecy. So the elves, so it's a colony full of elves who are for some reason incapable of being able to breed with humans to make half elves. and they have and they have this prophecy about a half elf coming and like taking over their country, and we happen to have a half elf in our party, and everyone's like confused, and everyone's like scared of her.
Nice.
And we don't entirely know like much more than that. It was kind of just getting a little bit of the setting. We actually got invited to meet with the queen. We talked with her, and she told us about the prophecy because no one would talk about it before that. It's kind of one of those things where it's like, no, we're not going to talk about it. So they're like all scared of her, and it'll be funny. Mm-hmm. So kind of curious how that's going to play out.
Yeah.
Especially since we know the main bad guy that we're fighting is also a half-elf. So we're like wondering, hey, is it possibly referring to that guy coming and taking over? Because it doesn't say the first half-elf, it's just like a half-elf, you know, so is the prophecy. So it's kind of just like, maybe it's that guy that it's referring to.
Right.
But we don't know for certain what's gonna happen. So.
Yep. Joe, how about you?
We didn't do any actual RPGs.
Uh-huh.
We did some...
We did do something tabletop related.
Yes, we did online. We did Dungeon, which I managed to kick butt in.
Yes.
Which was totally opposite the last time we played Dungeon.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
I got screwed over. I should have skipped that freaking room with that freaking mummy.
Yeah, we both did really stupid things, and we kept beating our head against the wall with it.
Well, both of you kept fighting enemies that were way too powerful.
They weren't way too powerful.
Because I was getting... Well, it was a little bit, like, hard. It's like 1 in 10, I think it was.
Yeah,
like,
it was something like that, because it was 10, 11, 12 or something. Yeah, so it's like a 1 in 10 chance. Which isn't... the thing is, it took me more than 10 turns to, like, beat it, though, or something, you know?
Yeah,
like...
and then I was literally, like, the reason I was fighting that one is because it was the last thing I needed to win.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like, if I had beaten it, I would win.
Well, the thing that
Joe was already there, so...
Well, the thing that lucked me out was getting the secret door card, like, in the first monster fight I had.
You got, like, 3 of them.
2. I had 2.
Okay.
It's like, I could see every secret door twice.
Yeah, so it's just kind of like, oh my gosh, why couldn't one of those gone to me? Because I spent several turns staring at walls.
Like, I think there's a door here, but I can't find it. And then there was Dragon Farkle, which you pulled the wind out of your butt on that one.
Yeah, because we were, like, not super good at understanding the rules. And as I was reading, I'm like, wait a second, Dragon Fight's different.
You get a second turn, I get a second turn.
Yeah, so it's like you just keep going until you basically lose.
Yeah, and your last roll.
My last flesh roll. Yep. I had one more chance, and it got it for me. Otherwise, you would have won because you did the same thing and you won. Yeah. But I realized, wait a second, I have a chance because of the way the rules were.
I was screwed most of that game, and then it's like, oh, here's where I get all my armies now. Here's 3,000 armies. Okay.
Yeah, you got that one last roll to just get everything. Because you're like, oh, there's like 5 of a kind or whatever it was.
Yeah. I was like, that's exactly what I needed. Because I had no army, hardly any army at that point.
Yeah, it was the what was the one that gave you 1,500, and then you got the double army. So it was just kind of like, oh.
Yeah, it just was like, thank you, I will take those now. And then I also had the card that allowed me to fight the dragon with 500 less soldiers.
Yeah. Yep. And Tantus probably would have won if I didn't screw him over.
Oh my god!
Curse card right at the beginning.
Oh god! It like hit me, and it kept hitting me every turn. Yeah. Oh my god. Yeah.
It was wonderful.
Give Wyrm 100 armies.
Yep. Every time you gain armies, I get 100.
Yeah.
It wasn't even that like great because you kept using your ability to kill my 100 units, but it was basically just a free buffer where I killed your units with instead of mine.
Yeah.
It's basically what
it's pretty much what it was. Is you had me killing my own units every turn, where I had to.
You're basically you damn traitors.
Yeah. So yeah, that was I had one RPG this week. So we didn't end up doing stuff on Sunday. Well, we did Star Trek on Sunday. Me and you, Joe.
Oh yes.
We did the Star Trek TCG, the customizable card game.
Yes, which we had a hell of a time getting started because Lackey CCG kept not displaying the cards right.
And it turns out that they needed some kind of major update
Yeah.
that we didn't even know we needed until we started because we didn't have it last time.
Because it was just saying, you know, we could see our own cards fine, but when we put them out, our opponent saw them as other things.
Yeah, that was wonderful.
I see a Federation dude, not a planet.
And Lackey is hard enough to stream as it is because I have to take a monitor view in order to stream it.
Ah.
Now, fortunately, because of my monitor's shape, it means I could easily have cut it off, so I only have the top of my monitor that's on stream. But it means I had to position it there, and I can still see the chat. And I do have that second monitor. I just don't have all the wires for it to set it up yet. I'll have that eventually too.
If you need a VGA cable or something, I have an extra one.
I might. I also might need an adapter though to hook it in the back because I don't know if it's got the same.
Yes.
Because I don't know. I think I'm already using the one.
Gotcha.
Yeah. But anyway, so yeah, that was fun. And then on Wednesday and Thursday, I did an off-stream RPG, a 2-shot, 3 hours each, with Ollie, Will, Skoink, a bunch of people from the False Presenses Discord. And that was really fun. I used some inspiration from a previous game we had done with you, Joe. I brought back Ferdinand Fink. Yep. Fink basically sent them on a mission to retrieve an artifact of some type. And they, of course, ran into some difficulties along the way. Faced off against demonic forces, which they had to pay a toll for. Defeated the kind of final boss. I did have some trouble with some riddles I had written, which, I might actually run this 2-shot on stream at some point in time because it's really cool. And I know how to fix the riddles up. Ollie just basically gave me one suggestion. It's like, you did it this way. If you change the way that these riddles interact like this, it's a lot better. And I'm like, you are correct.
I like the riddles. I made a good riddle one.
You'll become the riddler?
Yeah, well, basically, at the time, I made it that you had to answer all the riddles at the same spot, and it's basically, just go to, the different spots to answer the riddles, and it makes sense then. And that's the edit he said.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense, yeah.
Yeah. Which, my idea wasn't terrible, it just was a little confusing, and I understand why.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so it wasn't like it was a game ruiner, it was just a little confusing. And it made things more difficult. But no, it was a really fun adventure. The group of characters, I did it with 5 players, which was cool. I think Ollie was playing, I believe he was a half-orc fighter in plate mail that never took his armor off. So he had a little thing he could open up to, drink booze through, because he was always getting drunk, too. Which is great. Will was a Ganassi sorcerer. So he would, leave dirt and earth everywhere, because he was, the rock one. We had I think it was a dwarven cleric, or no, but a human cleric, dwarven. There was a dwarf cleric and a human paladin. The human paladin I remember, and one of them was a cleric, and the other was a wizard. And I can't remember which one was the dwarf and which one was the human. But they made a good team, all 5 of them, and it was fun. And again, as I said, I might do that 2-shot on stream because I have it all written out, and it'll probably end up slightly different than it did last time, judging how they managed to take care of certain things. I'm sure there'll be little changes that I'll have to account for in the course of it, which will be fun. But yeah, that was my big role playing this week, really. So, all right, cool. Chat. Do you have any questions for us? It's time for our final segment, of course, which is you asking us questions or questions that we got from this week. Ask the table. I can quickly check our Yahoo at discussingtabletop@yahoo.com to see if anybody took advantage of that. Oh, that's mine. That's my Yahoo, not the right one. Have to switch them over. The proper account. Or chat if you have anything that you want to ask us. Go ahead now. If not, we'll finish up for today. So, give you a minute here.
I'm ready.
Yep, we're ready for it. We're ready for you. Yeah.
One of these days.
One of these days, someone will actually answer a question. I'm actually kind of fine with not. At least it's better than me trying to come up with a question every time for when we were doing it before for gaming.
What is the airspeed velocity of unladen swallow?
You're supposed to say I don't know and get flung off a bridge into the abyss, or right
No,
before
you're supposed to say African or European.
Oh, that's right. I'm sorry. I got it wrong. Fine.
Now you get flung off the bridge.
Mm-hmm. All right, so why don't we finish up today? All right, so I hope everybody's had a great time.
Thank you, Smokin'.
Thank you, Muffins. Yes. So, yep. That's it for today. I hope everyone had a great time, enjoyed the show. We'll be back next week. Oh, actually, no, we won't be back.
No, we won't.
On
we
Saturday.
have PAX.
We have PAX Unplugged next week. So if you're going to be at PAX Unplugged, let us know on Twitter. Let me know on the Discord. Again, if you have any suggestions for anything you want us to check out there, let us know. You can check online their entire list of stuff. We'll be walking the show floors. We'll be playing some games. I'll probably try to organize a few meetup events between people, try to figure out who's going and stuff.
Or just come up and pull on Tantus's hair.
No. I get enough stream niece trying to pull out every last one of my hair constantly. It's like, I'm gonna do your hair, and then it's like, you are bad at doing this. You create tangles. Your efforts are bad for hair. You are adorable, but you are a force of destruction and doom. But no.
See, I would go to PAX, but it's about 2,500 miles away.
Yes.
And I don't have any way of getting there. Well,
Yep.
not that I'm willing to do.
Yes. At least
Come on,
not
use
right.
that teleporter.
Yes. The temporal teleporter that we keep intending to build. Eventually we'll get it done, and we won't have to worry about it, because it's both time and space.
The problem is it keeps splitting my good side from my bad side every time I try and use it, and it's always a pain to get those back together.
I know, yeah.
Because the evil side tries to run away and take over the world.
Yeah, it's always... And taking over the world is so cliche. Come on, evil sides. Do something like, run a corporation or something. Isn't that evil enough? Like poison small children or something in the name of profit. I don't know.
What?
Well, it's like those evil corporations that always create industrial dumping zones, so they don't care who gets poisoned or something.
Stop poisoning small children.
I'm not. The evil corporations are.
And how are you making a profit off of doing that?
Well, they're making some kind of drug, and they have industrial waste that they have to delay. The drug is really popular, and the industrial waste needs to be disposed of somewhere, and it happens to be in an area where children will be exposed to it and get sick and maybe possibly die, maybe not.
Maybe they'll mutate.
I'm more just thinking third world country labor, where you just send what's it called,
Yes.
the products, my brain's the electronic waste or whatever that you can disassemble for parts and stuff and have them.
Oh, here we go. Poison them while selling them insurance. There you go. Also sell them the insurance that they're going to need.
Make sure the insurance covers everything except poisoning, though.
Yes, so it'll cover everything except for the poisoning that they'll be taking. Yeah, good times.
Or mutation, because sometimes it might mutate them.
Yes, evil times. I can't say it's good times because evil times. Anyway, yes. Now that's done. Why do we go into this? I don't know. PAX. Yes. I'm thinking we will be back here on Monday for Once Upon a Misadventure, as long as Tiv is not sick. But the week after that, I might have us just do maybe a special Discussing Tabletop for a longer time, where not only can we talk about the stories from the week, but we can then have extra segments where we talk about what me and Joe saw on PAX, and we can discuss the things that we kind of encountered there between all of us, kind of thing. And maybe we can find someone that will want to be a guest on Monday evening. I'm thinking that maybe that. What?
And there is one thing that might be happening on Wednesday, although you're the only one who hasn't responded to yet.
Oh, sorry. I probably missed that you popped that up.
Just wanted to make it.
Yeah.
All right, can you do it? Can you do it this Wednesday?
This Wednesday? Sure. If you're planning
Awesome.
for it this Wednesday. Yeah.
It's just the CC stream, so.
Yeah. Yeah, I can do the character creation stream this Wednesday. I had a couple random ideas, so I mean, I'll just figure out which one to do in comparison to everybody else. I figure I'll just do team balance, because I like a good team balance. I'll see what we need and try to fill some kind of role at least. Anyway, okay. So yes, that's it for this today. We will be back in 2 weeks at our normal time. Theoretically, we'll be back in 2 Mondays from now, rather than next Saturday, for special Discussing Tabletop PAX Unplugged Extravaganza, where maybe we'll shoot some videos and share them with you. I'll figure out, maybe, like, add the 4th screen where I can pop up videos to, like, show you guys them, which we can see, or have them pop up over us or something, as I deem necessary and useful. Something like that. Okay, so I hope everybody's having a great Saturday, great rest of the weekend. I'll be back, of course, tomorrow night for just some gaming, and other than that, Monday for Once Upon a Misadventure. So I hope everybody's, enjoys the rest of their weekend, and we'll see you next time we are in here for Discussing Tabletop. So, bye, everyone.
Sign-offs? Sign-offs?
What? Oh, sign-offs. Oh, my God. I didn't even promote myself, too.
Yeah, I know. That's why I was like,
oh, wait. Joe normally does the PAX South thing, or PAX Unplugged thing, so I did it, and then I confused myself. We'll go with you, Wyrm. Yeah, so, shout-outs.
Yes.
Oh.
So I am Diamond Wyrm. You can find me at twitch.tv/DiamondWyrm or on Twitter at DiamondWyrm. This I stream Mondays, Wednesdays, and Saturdays. And this Wednesday, now that Tantus has told me he can make it, we will be doing the character creation stream for the RPG I will be running, which will include Tantus, Tavalik, someone from one of my other someone from the group which I just told the story from named Mads, and G-Man, who's from the FP Discord, and also on All Dragons stream that happens at like the same time as this show, so I can't catch it anymore. Anyway, but yeah, that's what's going on with me. I'll be streaming later today as well.
I'm just going to throw out there one last time, as we were saying, we're going to PAX next weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. They have their app on the phones that you can look at what's going on there. If you have anything you are specifically interested in us looking at and reporting, please let us know. Give us a tweet. Give us an email.
And theoretically, I'll have my badge by then, because Help Desk actually told me that I should still be getting it.
You still haven't got it. Jeez.
Yes, they said by Monday, if I don't get anything, I then talk to him again.
Fun.
Yes, fun. But they're like, everybody else got it out the first wave, and I'm like, but I ordered it with everyone else, so why was I not on the first wave of things?
I don't know.
I don't know either. Whatever. But yes, so PAX South, or PAX Unplugged. Calling it South. As for myself, you can check out down below here for all the various links to things, my YouTube page, the Discord. If you want to join us on the Discord, we're a growing community on the Discord, so I mean, there's a couple of us that we will have some nice conversations there, here and there. There's also links to my Patreon, which is a way of supporting me. You can also subscribe here for the emotes. The Patreon has other different rewards. I have, of course, things for various like stream donations are down there too. So which if everyone wants to know, I will keep saying it. Donations are Streamcat pets. Streamcat pets. Which Streamcat enjoys Streamcat pets. I've made things a little more creative on my massive amounts of setting up Streamlabs that I did earlier this week. Oh, but anyway, yeah. So VOD of this will be up on Tuesday, same day as when I do Gather and Roll. So If you missed part of this and you want to check the rest of it, you can see it on Tuesday or on Twitch while it's still up. Because I mean, you can do that too. But all the links are going to be with the YouTube side of things. So I'll see everyone later on this weekend, and we'll all be together here probably 2 Mondays from now, at least, and then the Saturday after that. So hope everybody, again, has a good weekend, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.